Good morning. Welcome to my alternative channel. It's Dr. John Taylor Kent. Just getting the camera set up here properly. I don't think that's quite right. There we go. Right dead center in the middle of it as best I can. The dog is getting her water in the water bowl. That's what you're hearing. And the heater's on low. And you'll hear the fan blowing. That's right here, pretty much at my feet. This is the 20th of December, 2022. We are in bad shape at this point. We have a Chi-Com agent in the White House. There's no doubt about that. The Chinese communists put him in the White House. And that's all there is to it. There's no arguing about that. They got the man they wanted. They wanted to get rid of Donald Trump. They did that. This is part of their war they wage on America today. And we are in big trouble because they've got us mired down in the Ukraine. And you might think of that as being something we started. But really, the same people that own and run the Chi-Coms own and run America. It's a one world government. Those guys control everything. They decide who's going to fight whom, and they control all parties. They play one against the other. That's just the way it is. We have a one world government. We are not an independent nation. No, we aren't. We certainly aren't represented. We have no justice in this nation. The FBI has violated everything, every sanctity possible, and needs to be dissembled. What is the FBI responsible for? Well, they sure as hell covered up the Kennedy assassination, and they made sure the Oklahoma City bombing happened, and they've also failed to investigate 9/11. We know a crime occurred. We know that it was never investigated. So the FBI is a total failure. The FBI has been controlling us through social media, including YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I think that the only way out of this is to do away with the FBI. We did not start this nation with an FBI, and we certainly don't need an FBI anymore. The FBI was one of the three strikes against us, the three strikes against America that were done in 1913. The first being the creation of the Federal Reserve System, which is not federal and has no reserves, and it's a money monopoly. And that's how the enemy took us over. And you guys out there may say, well, Lincoln kept us together so we could fight World War I and World War II. What if Lincoln had never been president? We would have never had a corporation called the United States of America. We would never have incorporated the state governments and everything else in the nation and put it up as a corporation for profit. Come on, up here. Let's show people you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. This is Lorraine. Lorraine's a good girl, huh? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. She's getting bigger. She's just a little over a year old. Look, folks. I lose my track so easily. Lay down. 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 That's not what I said. What did I say? No, I'm not going to pet you. Down. Kennel. I will put her back in the kennel if she doesn't. Lorraine, down. Get your bone. Get your bone. Oh my God, she's got jaws and teeth. Wow. And she may be kind of small, but those teeth are so sharp. Anyway, the FBI, Dan Bongino came out and said that the FBI has to be done away with. I've been saying that for a while. You'll look at my old videos, you'll see I call the FBI NFG. YouTube took down that video claiming that I had disparaged vaccines in it. I don't know. They're probably right. I apologize for that. I'm not going to do any such thing again. But I really think that maybe YouTube took it down to protect the FBI. The three strikes in 1913 were your Federal Reserve System, whereby they stole the entire nation. That's right. They haven't earned it. They stole it. Actually, they used it to steal everything across the world and set up their world government. They've used America to do that. They used America to launch the Bolshevik Revolution and to murder the czars. Why did they go after the czars? The czars were very well educated, and they were Israelites as well. If you don't know what an Israelite is, I welcome you to join us on the other channel, Awakening Israel. It's primarily a Bible-focused enterprise over there. And I have only one product for sale on this channel as well, and that is the best Bible available in the world today. My family, a member of my family, distant relative, brought you the 1611 King James Version of the Bible. I am bringing you the 2015 version of the proper name version of the King James Bible, which restores the scripture so you have the name of Yahweh in there. And you need to learn that. And you need to get familiar with his name. And the best way to do it is with this most accurate modern English Bible available. When you take the link down below in the description, it'll take you to a page. There's a drop-down box. There's like 4 different formats available. Every one of those ends in 77 cents. That's the lowest price available anywhere. The publisher promised me that, and I will get credit for it, and I appreciate that. I want to give you more value than you give me. I want to earn my keep. I think I'm earning my keep, and if you agree, then buy my Bible and, more importantly, read it. And if you bought my Bible, then get one for somebody else. It makes an excellent gift. I think the large print makes a wonderful, family Bible. It has a presentation page in it. We are not going to be able to get these Bibles as cheaply in the future. This is the lowest price they will ever be. And my competitors, who have the other big Bibles, would charge probably very close to $150. The lowest price I saw on a Schofield Reference Study Bible was $115, and that was about 8 years ago. So prices have gone up since then, and this Bible's under $50. Now, the prices are subject to change, and it may already have changed. I don't keep up with that. My focus is saving the nation. If I can make some money doing that, I appreciate that. I really do. I would rather turn this nation into a nation of Bible readers, because I think that's how we get it back. I think that's how we save it. We fight it spiritually. And talk among yourselves and talk freely. And by the way, these smartphones, they're listening to us everywhere. I mean, Stalin, Lenin would be just plain proud of what we have for a police state today. They only wish they could have had this. It's like the Antichrist system. I mean, they would wish they could have had this technology available. And in case you're wondering, you think we're better than the Chicoms? We have the same ratio of cameras for our population that the Chicoms have for theirs. So the Chicoms are actually running the show for our boys here behind the scenes. They're getting all that information on you and me, and they're using it. They're going after us through the high-tech companies, and they're using it. They're going after us through our government agencies, especially the FBI. The FBI is there to crack down upon the public. Its primary job is to babysit the politicians. And that's what some of the early agents were assigned to do. There were some gay congressmen a long time ago that the agents would follow around and make sure they didn't get into trouble. So those boys could have a night out on the town, get drunk, screw around, do whatever they wanted, and the public wouldn't have any inkling, any knowledge of it. The FBI was informed about the bombing of the Edward Murrow building, the plans of it, the 6 weeks before the bombing occurred. And the FBI told the ATF to stand down. And of course, we all know the bombing occurred. 19 children were killed in that. The ATF had all of their agents out of the building that day, except for, I believe, one secretary. You can look that up, put it in the comments below. So when the bombing occurred, the guy who did the real bombing, and it wasn't the patsy, they always set up a patsy, the real bomber was escorted 9 months after the bombing outside of the nation through Nova Scotia back to his home in Germany. I think his name was Andy Strasberg, something like that. Go look it up. Go do the research. Put it in the comments, please. So not only were we given the Federal Reserve in 1913, we ended up being committed to those wars because of the Federal Reserve System. And we continue to be committed to other illegal, unconstitutional wars because our entire apparatus has been stolen. We are no longer in charge. The electorate, according to one of my mentors, has not been in charge of this country since 1913. Since the election of Woodrow Wilson, which I believe was in 1911. If you know it, put it in the comments below. I should look it up, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head, give you a flow of consciousness. So you had the Federal Reserve System, which took away our real money and stole the money of the rest of the world. It's a Rothschild bank. The Rothschilds had a presence here before we started. Alexander Hamilton was their man. He was the Rothschild representative, and I know that we laud that young man. His real name was Louis. It was French. It had a French pronunciation, and I think he came from Jamaica, and I think he was a half-breed. He was a mixed man. He too was set up in a honeypot scheme, and Aaron Burr called him out on it, and they ended up in a duel, and Aaron Burr ended up killing Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton wanted a king. He wanted King George Washington, and he also got us a central bank and got us into a lot of trouble. He also created the system whereby Wall Street was founded, and he didn't have the wherewithal to do it himself. His masters, his owners, his keepers, the Rothschilds told him how to do it. We were also given the Anti-Defamation League. A man named Leo Frank, who was a Jewish man, murdered a young girl, raped her and murdered her, and was charged with the crime, and the ADL was formed to defend him. And of course, their number one defense is a weapon, and that is to defame others. So if you're called anti-Semitic, don't worry about it very much. And tell them the truth. If you know who you are and what you are, and most of us are Semites, by the way. Most of us are descendants of the man Shem, Noah's oldest son. And a Semite is based upon language classification, the Semitic languages. So it's really kind of an apple and oranges thing to turn that into a damn race. Okay? So we were given the ADL. And the third thing we were given was the predecessor, was done under a different name, to our Federal Bureau of Investigations. They argued about it because policing was reserved to the states. All policies, policing was reserved to the states, and they created the FBI in violation of the Constitution. They argued about it quite a bit back then. And as you can see, the FBI is nothing more than organized crime. They're guilty of misguiding this nation and installing a Chi-Com agent into power. They protect the Chi-Coms throughout the country. Not everything's Chi-Com. They protected the perpetrators of the Kennedy assassination, which was our own CIA. There were 2 CIA operations in Dealey Plaza that day. One was headed up probably by Frank Sturgis. One operation was a false flag operation to fake an attempt on the president's life, to fake an assassination in order to justify invading Castro's Cuba. The other CIA operation was the real deal. It was the real assassination. And the supervisor on the scene was later President Bush. And he took his son to work that day. So Bush Jr., who's still alive, was present for the assassination that his father oversaw the triangulation of the shooting. And there were more than 3 shooters. There were many shooters that day. A book written by Grayson, who's since deceased, called The Elite Serial Killers of JFK, RFK, MLK, and Lincoln. He covers most of the shooters. He missed one of them, and he admits he missed the female shooter. He couldn't identify the female shooter. There actually were 2 females, in case you're wondering. A lot of gangster types there, CIA types there as well. He tells you who had what position, what rifle they had, what optics they used, how many rounds they fired. He really got into it in a big way. He also covers the MLK assassination. He didn't get that right either. He got it very close. He identified who it was that shot the 30-06, the high-powered rifle, from across the street. And that was an FBI hit. The FBI killed Martin Luther King. J. Edgar Hoover hated him, hated the Kennedys. He was owned by a secret society. He was owned by the bad guys that had stolen the nation. I think the best way to handle this is we cease all funding for the FBI and we dissolve it completely. I think we send military in there, and that they take every agent into custody. They put them on house arrest, to say the least, and they debrief each one of them, and they come to a determination. Do we charge them with treason? Or do we give them a pass because they're going to work with us in the prosecution to solve all of these unsolved crimes? And by the way, J. Edgar Hoover had an assassination hit team inside of the agency. And he ordered the assassination of 31 eyewitnesses to the Kennedy assassination. Don't believe me? Go look up some of the old Rents shows and look up the reverse speech engineering of Oates, I think was his name. And you'll see that in one of their speech reversals, J. Edgar Hoover said, "I killed them all." Well, and then go look up Michael Collins' book, Final Judgment, and you will read it in there, and you'll see one of the FBI hitmen by name and one of his targets by name. So we know for a fact the FBI is nothing but murderers and thieves. And by the way, there was a missile strike upon some sort of a barn, a ranch in the middle of Texas quite a while back. That missile strike's purpose was to eradicate the nuclear signature that was present on site, because somebody in our government took out the good W-54 warheads that were used on the Davy Crockett tactical missile. It's about a 7-foot long missile. It's kind of on a tripod up at an angle, and I was told about those when I was a little boy in Germany. I lived there when the Berlin Wall went up. And we had those tactical nukes that they were going to use. My dad was in artillery, and he was an officer. But I'll tell you this, they wouldn't let the officer touch those things. Only the enlisted men, because they didn't want the officer messing it up. And the enlisted men were the ones that were going to launch those things on the front lines. Of course, we all knew as children, and families knew, that if we were attacked, we were just going to be a speed bump as the Soviets came through. Thank God that never happened. But I remember the Cuban Missile Crisis quite well. I was a little boy. Okay, so you ended up with 3 evils at one time. Talk about a holy antichrist, if you will, an unholy trinity. So you have the FBI, the Federal Reserve, and the ADL, all created in 1913, used to take this nation down from within. I think we send the military in, we get the records, secure those for the FBI, from the FBI, and we have military intelligence go over it, and I think we have the Navy and the Army intelligence, and maybe even the Air Force. But we need to have at least naval intelligence, which does seem to be superior, and the Army intelligence, both going over those materials independently, each with independent access to the FBI agents, each leading independent investigations. And I'd like to toss the Air Force in there for good measure, out of respect to the intelligence generals. I think if we have 3 separate independent investigations going on that are not coordinated, we can eventually coordinate those to help us determine truthfully what has occurred and who to prosecute. I definitely want to see Christopher Wray and Comey taken to task. I don't think either one of them should be a free man ever again. That's my opinion. You might think they deserve worse than that. I think they deserve that at the least. However, I think every one of our congressmen and senators is worthy of some sort of charges and investigations. I'd like to investigate them all. I would like to return to a constitutional Senate. You see, I'll give this analogy. I've given it before. If you and I walk into a court of law and tell the judge, that's against my constitutional rights, the judge might look up and say, oh, smart ass. So you were a party of the Constitution. You signed it? Of course, none of us have. We weren't even born when that happened. But the fact is, the signers to the constitutions were the states. The state governments authorized the Constitution. They are the parties of the Constitution. And the Senate, the purpose of the Senate was to represent the state governments. That's why they were directly from the state legislators. They, after being elected to their offices, argued among themselves and chose out the senators they were going to send to Washington, D.C. They chose out the 2 senators. Moreover, the senators had to vote the way the legislators wanted them to vote. If they failed to vote the way the legislators of the states wanted them to vote, they were subject to instant recall, to being fired on the spot, to having to come home from Washington, D.C., and then they could finish off the seat to which they had been elected in the state legislature. We need to go back to that, and there won't be any more Mavericks and bullshitters. There wouldn't be any more Romneys or McCains or Murkowskis or Collins. Or who's that wicked witch of the West? Yeah. We wouldn't have that current Speaker of the House. She'd have been gone a long time ago. That's why the Senate was to be such a slow defending organization of the Republic. I think we get rid of the 17th Amendment because it's unconstitutional. And then I think we go a step further. I think we tell each state government, you will pay your senators the wages and benefits to which you think they deserve. And that senator in D.C. will get a check, maybe signed by the treasurer of the state or the governor of her state, or both of them actually probably, and they will know who they're beholden to. And by the way, your congressmen were never meant to be paid. It was considered public service. And a successful businessman who had earned his way and had saved up his money, who could afford to support himself, was elected to Congress. And when he ran out of money and couldn't support himself anymore, he went home. Somebody else took his place. They didn't think there was any reason for term limits because they weren't professional politicians. They were businessmen, successful business people who could afford to support themselves. And I think we take away all pay, salaries, and benefits, including medical benefits, from congressmen and congresswomen. All of it. We give them what the founders gave congressmen, which was a simple per diem. That was a simple per diem fee, a simple per diem allowance. And it was to defray the cost of lodging and meals while they served the nation. So I think that we give them what? What's it cost for lodging and meals? What should it cost for lodging and meals? Not too long ago, I would think $300 a day would cover it. Would get you a decent room and get you 3 meals, right? I mean, $200 for the room and $100 for 3 meals. That's pretty good. And I think that we go back to that. However, we need to jack those jackasses up, curtail them, bring them to bear, and we need to tell them, you miss a day of service or part of a day of service, you don't get the per diem. You miss a vote, you don't get the per diem. Nobody can vote in your stead. That vote is lost. If by chance you abstain from voting, you don't get the per diem either. You have to decide, yay or nay. You can't vote present. Screw that. You're either for it or against it. And by the way, the South actually was superior to the North. The South gave us presidents that were reelected to office. Before the Civil War, wasn't the damn president from the North that got reelected. They're all one-term presidents. The South was better educated. They were much more refined in their culture, and they made more money. That's why they did that war. It wasn't about slavery. It was about the money. The South was paying something on the order of $8 million out of the $10 million annual federal government budget. So the South was unfairly taxed. That's basically what it was about. And in case you want to disagree, let's look at the highest paid state at the time of the Civil War, before the Civil War. That would have been the state of Connecticut. They made like $713 a year, average annual salary for a citizen of Connecticut. That was the highest salary in the North. What was the highest salary in the South? Why, the state of Mississippi. And it was over $2,100 a year. 3 times the salary for Connecticut. Well, let me take it a step further. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated and died with an unsigned executive order on his desk. It was an order forcibly repatriating all the blacks back to Africa. That's why they founded the nations over there. I think it was Monrovia, or not that, it was Liberia. They were going to repatriate all the black slaves back to Africa with gold and silver. They were going to send them home. Why? Lincoln did not believe that the races were compatible. Imagine that. Abraham Lincoln said the races weren't compatible. Why did Abraham Lincoln say that? Abraham Lincoln was a 3-in-1 man. He was 3 races in one being, in one body. He was plagued with his thoughts. He was a bothered, disturbed man. He was part Native American, he was part black, and he was part white Jew, Rothschild, from the family of Rothschild. Took the name of his mother, Lincoln, I believe, but his father was named A. Springs of Alabama. Springs was short for Springsteen. Springsteen was a grandson of a Rothschild, the offspring of a Rothschild and the Rothschild maid. So Abraham Lincoln was Caucasian, Negroid, Mongoloid. I think that's all three of the races, according to that classification scheme anyway. And Abraham Lincoln died with that on the Resolute desk. He was not able to sign it. The people that whacked him did that purposely so they could keep us in a mess over here and destroy us from within later on. They have destroyed civilizations across time and history, across Earth ages, I believe. That's my suspicion anyway. They destroyed northern Israel. They destroyed southern Israel. They destroyed the house of Israel first, and then they destroyed the house of Judah. And they mixed the people of the land. They took outsiders and put them into Israel. The Good Samaritan was a person of mixed lineage, and the self-righteous Jews wouldn't have a damn thing to do with those mongrels up there. They treated them worse than they treated the dogs. Well, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just speaking off the top of my head. They didn't like them. They wouldn't intermarry with them. They didn't consider them equal. Okay? And the Good Samaritan was a mixed person who went by and helped a man, a Jewish man, who was in distress when the other self-righteous Jews walked right on by him. The Good Samaritan. Okay, I know, I guess it belongs on my other channel. Go look at my other channel if you really want biblical wisdom and education. Above all, buy my Bible. The founding of this nation, all of our founders were educated in the Bible. They read it as little boys. I think the girls read the Bible too. It's okay anyway. I love it when I get correction or input from one of my sisters in Israel, because they see things differently and they bring things to my attention that we men just don't think about. So, heck yeah. Read that Bible. Help us all out. The other channel is Awakening Israel, the purpose of which is to awaken our brothers and sisters in Israel. And the United States of America is a great Israelite nation. It's probably the great Israelite nation that was foretold in the book of Genesis. For you people that think that, the United States of America, you go to your big box churches and those guys will tell you, it's not in the Bible. We're in the Bible like you wouldn't believe. And it's not all good. So you better read it, find out. You want your country back? You want to save Western civilization? You got to understand the Bible. You got to understand your own history. So we need to do away with the FBI. That's all there is to it. Dan Bongino's out there saying it publicly. I agree. And I think we need to bring in all three branches of the military and put all three branches of the military to bear on all of those records and interviewing all of those FBI agents. And we need to definitely take some people into protective custody. Comey needs to be in protective custody above all, because so many people want that big jackass dead. It's not funny. And Christopher Wray, who's lied to Congress and done all that shenanigans, he needs to be arrested too so we can protect his life. I said protective custody. We can charge them with crimes later on. By the way, lying to the FBI is a criminal act. If an FBI agent lies to the military intelligence, so be it a criminal act as well. I love my puppy dog. She's wonderful. She can be a pain in the ass. She's very spoiled, of course. That's my fault. Oh, she got her head pressed up against me, and I'm doing my best to just give her a nice life of a puppy. We'd like to continue her training, but like everybody else out there, I ran out of money, so buy my Bibles. Lorraine's training is not cheap. I think the next stages of training are, they'll eat up 10 grand easy. And I think she's worth it. She's Belgian Malinois, and her lineage is quite good. I'm trying to make her more of a pet than probably most. She really wants a job. I don't give her enough stimulation. I'm not a very good pet owner. My dad told me I wasn't very good because I didn't catch the water being empty. So I check it as often as I can, and I make sure to fill it up. She gets filtered water too, though. She gets good food. I have it shipped in. She gets good supplements. I have that done as well. I guess I should ask those people to sponsor my show, but I think I'm too radical for most people. So I'm not going to, maybe I'll do that. But I would really like to have somebody manage me. I need somebody to manage my butt, you bet. And I would pay them for sure. I'd even go for a producer engineering the show. I'd be all for it. But the airtime is so bloody expensive now. They more than tripled the rates on the last station I was on. And it's not worth it. And the owner pretends he's a conservative and he's a liberal jackass. He pretends he's a Republican, and he gets out there and undermines the Republicans all the time. The Pulse of Arizona, it's called. The Dead Pulse of Arizona. It's a real good indicative of that. So, that's KFNX 1100 AM. The Dead Pulse of Arizona. I don't think they're going to like hearing that. I hope somebody grabs that phrase and goes with it, though. With that guy. Look, the show is better, the station's better run than before as far as programming. I think there are better shows on it today, but it's not done right still. Okay. What would I like for you to do? Please like the video. Please leave comments. Share it. Send this to somebody. Post it on social media. I get banned from it all the time. I got banned from Twitter. They won't let me back on. Okay, fine. That was a long time ago. On Facebook, they regularly give me 30 days. The last time it was because I was telling them about the nuclear war that's in the Bible, and they said it was against community standards. I'm sorry. I mean, if it's freedom of religion and freedom of speech, and they denied both of those to me. So if ever there's a suit filed against Facebook, count me in. Get a hold of me. They have violated my free speech, my First Amendment rights in totality, including freedom of religion, because we have to be able to talk. If we're going to educate each other, if we're going to have any kind of a culture or society, we have to be able to talk freely. And if we have bad ideas, we need to be free to express those so that we can be corrected. I'm not saying, that everything is going to be good. It's not. But if I've got the wrong idea, for heaven's sake, tell me the truth. Tell me the right idea. Correct me. That's the way we have to be. And so if I've got a misconception about something that I'm not allowed to talk about on YouTube even, I'd like to be able at least to utter it so somebody might be able to argue with me a little bit intellectually and correct me. I might grow from it. We need to do away with the FBI. My one video was the FBI is NFG, which means, non-functional gear. I got that from a fellow who, when I taught guitar lessons years ago, he worked for the Matanuska Electric Association. He would put these letters on gear, and secretaries were getting upset with him because they accused him of cussing using letters. And so they were upset and they confronted him. What's NFG mean? And he said adroitly, oh, of course, it means non-functional gear. Yeah. It's good to laugh. It's good to have a sense of humor. Medicine is the best medicine. Humor is the best medicine. Groucho Marx got a horrible, dire warning. Another man, Jewish man of considerable talent, the Marx brothers were And the Three Stooges were all Jewish men. They're very geniuses in what they did. Although watching the Three Stooges, boy, that made you jump when they got popped in the head and all the other stuff they did. And they did a lot of that stuff live. Man. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Do buy my Bibles. Christmas is coming. I'd like a final push. I haven't collected anything yet. I'm going to give the publisher a call and ask for a check and get it here at the end of this month. I would recommend that you read the Bible and you pray to Yahweh. I would recommend that you talk to as many people as you can. Talk as openly as you want. Yes, we have one camera in this nation, one surveillance camera for every 4 American citizens. Chi-coms have one camera for every 4 subjects. It's the same thing. Our cameras are wired into their computers over there. If you want to activate a computer today, you will end up going through China because they're making them and they have the databases over there. So they're really in charge of all of our security stuff over here. They run our electrical grid. Oh, and by the way, the latest false flag, it's probably these attacks on the electrical stations that have occurred in Florida, South Carolina, Washington State, Oregon State. They've been taking them out with 30 caliber rifles. We have a wide open border. President Bush Sr. brought over 5,000 crack troops, Iraqi Republican Guard soldiers, on 2 occasions for a total of 10,000 of their jihadists settled in the country. I met 2 of them personally, and they identified themselves as being jihad, and they were waiting to be activated and could take years, and that was in 1993. On Interstate 8 at the Yuma fruit checkpoint there. That's what they were asking for at the time. And then at the end of the Vietnam War, they brought over North Viet Cong. They brought over North Vietnam regulars. They brought them over and settled them up and down the Mississippi River. So they are probably waiting to be activated as well. You see, we've been the target all along. Why? Because we are descendants of Israel. We are descendants of Adam. We're descendants of his son Seth. Remember, Abel was murdered by his half-brother Cain. And the other faction we are warring against are descendants of Cain. You can read it in the Bible. It takes quite a bit to read it and sort it out and understand it, because there's a lot of parallel construction, if you will. History runs in parallels. You've got a trinity of good and you have a trinity of evil in the Bible. You have 12 Israelite boys. Israel had 12 sons, 12 tribes. And Ishmael had 12 boys, 12 dukes that predate the sons of Israel, by the way. And Ishmael was okay, but the Ishmaelites did something. Either Ishmael himself or one of Ishmael's children or one of his grandchildren intermarried with the people of the land, with the Canaanites. And so that they ended up carrying on that same satanic fallen angel DNA. And then we have to go back to the original story of 200 angels getting kicked out of heaven, 1/3 of the heavenly host, thrown to the earth. And we have an artwork of 60 fallen angels, and we have stories published saying 200 fallen angels met on Mount Hermon in the Middle East and conspired. It was their great conspiracy that we're dealing with. That was the original sin. It wasn't Eve eating of the apple. It's a bunch of bullshit. It was the fallen angels on Mount Hermon conspiring to go into the daughters of men, and one of the leaders of the fallen angels was named Gadriel, and he seduced Eve, who gave birth to Cain. I know that belongs on the other channel, Awakening Israel. But you need to understand, this is the fight between good and evil. That's what we are in. We are in World War III right now. It is an unlimited war. The other side is using all kinds of sorcery, all kinds of evil, all kinds of killing against us, including chemicals in our clothing, in the air, in the water, in the food, on the land, in our bodies, including radiation. They did that as well with the blowing of the bombs up in Nevada. That did a lot of problems. They've done it medically with their poisons, all medicines based on principles of toxicity and disabling. They've done it through so many ways it's not funny. And it's centralized enough so even the people that are somewhat related to the bad guys, they don't even know it. Satan works for Yahweh, but he doesn't know it, according to Pastor Jerry Wiki. So I'm sorry I'm preaching. This is not the channel for it. That's Awakening Israel. The United States of America has been targeted because we are founded by Israelites, and we knew who we were at the time of the founding of our nation. Go read the obituary on George Washington. Go look it up. See what it says. That's important. May Yahweh bless America once again. May we return to Yahweh. May we restore our once great republic. Yahweh bless. Over and out.